to Everyday Orthodox. I'm Melissa Bielatich-Davis. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight. We get together on Sunday nights to talk to everyday Orthodox Christians. It's kind of like a national coffee hour, just getting to know one another and sort of promoting Orthodox unity by letting us become familiar with each other and know each other's stories. And, I find that just about everyone has a pretty fascinating story. I go to different churches and I'll talk to people and I just think, oh, I got to get that guy on this show. And actually, our guest tonight, his name is Kevin Goodman, and I actually met Kevin at his parish when I went there for a retreat a long time ago, about 12 years ago or so. And he was wonderful. I still remember him. We had a great time, and he's a lovely person. And I'm so excited to be able to introduce him to you. He, Baltimore, I think I mentioned, he's from Baltimore. He's a financial advisor. He and his wife, Nancy, had 3 kids. Nancy is a nurse, and they're lovely people. Pardon me. Welcome to the show.
Oh, my wife's name is Linda.
Linda, look at because I wrote nurse. It's the end. It's getting to me. Sorry about that. I'm having some struggling with my nouns lately, but it's not too bad. Hopefully we'll get through the show without me using too many wrong words. But Kevin, welcome to the program. It's so good to have you on.
Well, thank you. My pleasure to be on.
Well, thank you. And I know we wanted to have you on here at the end of November because you're involved in a really special ministry that we want to make sure that we're talking about and telling everyone about. So we'll talk about it in more depth later in the show. But it's called the St. Nicholas Tele-Santa, and it is a ministry with the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese. Tell us about it a little bit.
Well, it's actually a fascinating program. What we do is we send parents a information form and they'll fill it out. Let's say it's Demetrius and Sophia. They'll tell us about them, how old they are, things that they're interested in, things that they do well, things that they could improve on. So Santa would call and say, "Hi, Demetrius. Hi, Sophia. Mom tells me that you're really good in soccer and that you really are doing well in school. You like math. You like art. One thing you can improve on, though, Mom says you could clean your room a little better. Sometimes you guys could be nicer to each other." But the real thing about Christmas and St. Nicholas is he was a bishop way back when in the 300s in a country that's now called Turkey. And he was very kind to children. And so that ultimately developed into the story of Santa Claus. But that's where it came from. And he was just a wonderful saint. And then we talk about that a little bit. And we conclude with a prayer. We ask them if they, say grace. We ask them, the boys, if they help on the altar, if they could do that or consider that. That's how it goes. We have calls actually from all over the world. Last year we had even Japan and New Zealand. So,
oh, wow. That's really neat. So, of course, I assume everyone in this ministry doing this program, like you, bears a striking resemblance to St. Nicholas, right? So you call but you're not saying that you are St. Nicholas, but you're telling them about St. Nicholas and about the connection with our Santa Claus at Christmas time.
Right. And we put on the Santa costumes, the whole 9 yards. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's really neat. And that, of course, it helps families bring home really the real meaning of Christmas and sort of reorient from just toys under a tree to really a church holiday and a beautiful feast as it is.
I don't know how well you'll see this, but I'm going to put in front of me. This is an icon that we use. The light's shining on it. But it has St. Nicholas down the bottom and Santa, and has a nativity in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So
that is lovely.
One of the ones developed that icon or wrote it. So
right, I think that's so neat, and it's wonderful because that sort of sums up the ministry, right? Like bringing Santa Claus and the gifts he brings, his bag of gifts and everything, into this Orthodox context and into the context of the church and of the incarnation, and it's wonderful. And I wanted to make sure we could talk to you about it in November, so that there's still a little time, because we also have St. Nicholas's feast day coming up shortly. And that way it gives parents time to, who knows, maybe have some nicks out there, and it would be a good time to coordinate it with their name day or bring it in with St. Nicholas's day. But then also, I assume you would do it all the way through Christmas, right?
Well, we start on St. Nicholas Day, and then we
Ah,
go. I'm not sure if we go all the way to Christmas Eve, but we go deep in December. It depends too how many parents sign up and how many calls we do. I probably did 20 plus calls last year.
oh, wow.
Um, and
Oh,
then, of
that's
course,
neat.
it's, as you mentioned, the incarnation, which is the greatest gift, and we talk about that.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really neat. So I know the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese now is has it on its site and is actually coordinating your ministry with some stories like Incarnation. Was it called the Incarnation series or the Nativity series of little short stories that you can share with the kids as well? And you can find all the information on this, guys, at Saint Nicholas Tele Santa.com. So he's Tele-Santa, and it's a program of the Orthodox Church for your families. And, grandparents can sign kids up. Sunday school teachers could sign up your whole class. But it's all free. It's all just a special ministry hoping to really bring Christmas and sort of, the secular fun that we all have into focus as an important part of the church. And I think that's just lovely. It's really a neat ministry, Kevin. I'm glad that we had this occasion to be able to talk to you because I wanted to have you on the show anyway, because I remember when I met you so long ago. It was really fun. It was really good to get to know you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Long before you looked a lot like Santa Claus, where does your life story start, Kevin? Where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Massachusetts, near Boston, as we would say. I'm from a large family, one of 10 children. I
Ooh,
had six sisters, three brothers. One
oh
brother has
wow.
reposed, but there were
His name would be
10 of us.
eternal.
So when we'd go to church, we'd take up a whole pew. We were raised Roman Catholic. My mother, in particular, I think she was a very saintly woman, was very devout Roman Catholic, and she would go even every Friday. She'd go, or every first Friday, I forget. And as children, we'd all say the rosary together in the evenings until the older siblings decided they didn't want to anymore. And so that ended that. But a very devout mother. So
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, growing up, did you like church? Did you like going to church, or were you kind of mischievous? And what did you think?
I did like going to church. Actually, at some point, I thought maybe I would be a priest. Um, and I remember I was probably a young teenager, maybe 13, just and my father took me to a exhibit hall, pamphlet after pamphlet of different orders and such. So I remember thinking, well, maybe I could go to Africa and work with lepers and such. But
Oh, wow.
those
Oh,
things kind
that's
of went
lovely.
away as I aged. But I remember that, and I remember once also he took us to a Russian Orthodox church, which was the only time I ever went, and it was just interesting because, of course, the language was different, and you had communion under both species with the chalice and the spoon. And even though I wasn't Orthodox, I didn't know, so I just went up and received like anybody else. But um,
So, did your father
that
have a connection
and
to the Russian church? Was your father like part Russian or something? How did that end up happening?
no, no, I don't know how he decided that we just go visit. We did. One day he said, "Here's where we're going," and I'm like, "Okay." So we went.
Oh, that's
But
neat. That's really neat. Well, I think that's rare. I don't know if there are a lot of families that just, want to show you a little diversity, but that's neat. That's really cool to have seen that. So, of the 10 kids, where do you fall in the birth order?
I'm number six.
Oh, okay, right in the middle there. All right. All right. So, as you were growing up, what kind of things did you like to do?
Well, we were fortunate enough that we lived on a pond. So as children, we had a little sailfish, so we'd sail, we'd swim. In the winter, we'd play hockey,
Wow.
skate till it was too dark to see the puck, and then we'd come back up. But that's what we did a lot as children, go sledding, tobogganing, those sort of things.
Oh, that's neat. See, I grew up in California. This is very picturesque. That's amazing. Skating on a lake, on a pond, that's beautiful. That's really neat. That's wonderful. But so as you're growing up, you're thinking, maybe the priesthood, maybe Africa. Did you have other ideas about what you wanted to do with your life?
Wasn't really sure at that time. It's just, and then as you get older, sometimes things change. I did go to a Catholic high school. In fact, the only thing I ever heard about orthodoxy was one day the teacher said, "Oh, they're a bunch of heretics. We threw them out of the church a long time ago." So that one sentence was
Oh,
all I
wow.
ever knew about orthodoxy.
Wow.
But
That's
then,
interesting.
you know,
You never hear it said that way, right? Usually Catholics are very friendly about it and thinking of us still as kind of like a younger sibling or something. That's funny. I've almost never heard it
well,
said that way.
well, this was a while back. I graduated from high school in 1970, so it was a while back.
All right. Maybe they had a little rougher idea back then. But okay. So what did you think in high school? What kind of subjects did you enjoy? What sort of pastimes did you like?
Well, I was terrible in languages, still are.
Oh,
2 years of wasted time for Latin and for French, total waste of time with me. Um, I liked the myths, so I read the myths as a child, so I could roughly translate the stories and get that right. But as far as grammar, vocabulary, the rest of it, no, give me a D. Total waste of time. But I enjoyed sciences, I enjoyed history.
oh, well, that's great. So what did you decide to do when you finished school?
Well, I after high school, I went to college for a year, basically just to go. Didn't really have any real direction. Actually, this is again early '70s, so a whole different atmosphere, a whole different time.
Sure.
And I remember telling my high school guidance counselor I wanted to be a hippie. That was my direction and my goal at that time. So I went to college just basically to go and take the normal stuff that you take in your first year of college,
Yeah,
and
you.
then I drifted away from religion, and um, well, I only went to college for a year, and then I actually joined a religious order for about 6 years, some age 19 to 25, which had kind of a interesting mix of things stirred together. A little bit of Eastern thought, a little bit of Buddhism, a little bit of Hinduism, a little bit of what would be called New Age, although New Age was kind of just developing then. A little bit of cherry pick Christianity, all mixed together.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so that was for much of my younger life. And then I just wasn't progressing as spiritually as I wanted to. So I asked that I could be dismissed from vows and go, and they gave me their blessing. So I did. And then
Well, so
I
this
kind of
order,
followed that
Kevin,
same,
it
I'm
sounds
sorry.
like a formal. It sounds like a formal order, like taking vows and
Oh,
getting
it
their
was.
blessing to leave. But
Oh,
was it
yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
Catholic Church? No.
No, it was, it had an unusual name. It was the Holy Order of Mans, which is
Oh,
MANS.
yes,
Are
I
you
know what you're
familiar with
talking
them?
about. That's right. I've heard of them. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's very
Okay.
70s, right? It's very
Which
70s to do sort of the alternative hippie way of doing things. But okay, so they let you go.
Yeah, so this was back like in, the Jesus movement was very big and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the MANS was an acronym for Mysterion, Agape, Nous, and Sophia, Greek words.
Right. Okay.
Um, but you said you're familiar?
I am. I've heard of it, but I don't know if our audience has. So definitely tell us more because yeah, it's funny. It just sounds so formal, and I thought, my gosh, it can't be Catholic. But of course, that is a pretty formal
No,
organization,
it
even though
was
it is a
formal. It
hodgepodge.
had it had what they term master teachers and then priests and brothers and sisters. I didn't get ordained. I was a brother. And we'd teach, we'd hold classes, and it was a service ministry. We lived together. It wasn't exactly monastic, although one could marry. You weren't, you didn't have to be, well, you had to be celibate unless you were married, but you could marry.
Right.
And brothers and sisters would live, in the same house, the same community house. And you go to work with regular jobs, whatever you had, and then everything was, of course, shared in common, that sort of thing.
Wow, that's okay. So as you're doing it, you felt like you weren't spiritually progressing. How did you kind of gauge that, or what made you feel that way?
Oh, good question. I wanted to feel closer to Jesus, and I didn't. I didn't feel that I was that good at meditating. The mind would wander and jump around like little monkeys, as it does. So I just didn't feel like I was progressing enough. So I
Right.
left, and then I attended similar church with similar kind of philosophy, and then after a couple of years, I decided to go back to school. I had actually been dating a lady who I would have liked to have married, but she decided no. One of the things she said is that I was working as a special ed aide at the time, and she said, you wouldn't be able to support a family doing that, which she was right. And she had two children. And so, but that was a good awakening point. I decided that I'd go back to school, and I looked at various things because it was a special ed school. They had physical therapists, they had speech therapists, they had occupational therapists, they had a nurse. And I decided if I went to nursing, that would give me a broader range. I could work in a factory, a school, a prison, a hospital, a group setting, many different options. So
Sure.
I decided I'd pick up a nursing degree. So I went and did that.
Oh, wow.
And
Just pick up a nursing degree. Like it's an easy degree. That's a lot of work. That's
it was a lot of work, especially when you're working full time and going to school full time. It was a lot.
Oh gosh,
And
how long did that take to do it?
it was a 2-year program
Okay.
because I already had some of the
Gotcha.
basic junk you have to take in your first year out of the way. So I did that, and I was very interested in neurology. So I worked on the neurology floor, and you had to work on the floor for a year before you could go into critical care, which certainly made sense. So then I went into the neurocritical care unit, and I was a nurse for about 3.5 years. And
Oh, wow.
long story short, one day, this is late 80s, so we're talking probably 1986, when AIDS was very new. And all we knew about it was deadly, highly contagious, and bodily fluids. And so we had a young man come in, and he had AIDS. On top of that, he had neurological conditions. So Hopkins unit, he had complications as well. He came to the neurocritical care unit. So anyway, long story short, I went in to take care of him, and I just wore one of those simple little masks that today people wear, and a gown and gloves, which are useless, but that's besides
Right.
the point. And the head nurse told me I couldn't wear all that. And I'm like, what? She says, yeah, it makes the patient feel uncomfortable. Well, I'm sorry about that, but he's got a highly contagious, deadly disease that we don't know much about. And one, I'm not taking it to the next patient that I care for or his family. I'm not taking it to the rest of the staff. I'm not taking it home. I'm wearing this. And we got into a huge, huge fight. And I said, you're not allowing me to protect myself and the others. That's just ridiculous. And I had been working part time as a trainee advisor. So fortunately, I had a backup career. And so I left and then went into financial services.
Oh, wow. There you go. Well, and I guess, I mean, now we know more about HIV, and we know probably a mask wouldn't have made a big difference, but it makes
Sorry, I
sense to
didn't
begin.
catch everything you said. I got now that we know what.
Well, now that we know more about HIV, we probably know maybe the mask wouldn't have helped anyway, but certainly back then it really was a terrifying illness. Absolutely. But we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be right back. And so just a few minutes, we'll be right back here on Ancient Faith Radio with Kevin Goodman.
Hi, this is Genevieve, the Director of Development at Ancient Faith Ministries. I want to wish you all a warm and spiritually nourishing Christmas season. As we journey through the sacred Nativity fast towards the birth of Christ, I pray you are filled with hope, awaiting the light of the world. Throughout history, Christians have understood that the light we receive is meant to be shared with others as a gift. St. Nicholas secretly brought hope to families in need, and St. Lucia demonstrated how we can be light bearers in a world of darkness. Here at Ancient Faith, we are honored to edify, evangelize, educate, and engage countless seekers, believers, and those hungry for spiritual nourishment. Every donation, no matter how modest, becomes a light that we pass forward to our listeners. As you prepare for the Nativity, would you consider giving the gift of light to Ancient Faith? Your gift, whether 25, 50, or 100, joins with the offerings of countless others to ensure that Christ's light continues to be lit and shared. Please visit ancientfaith.com and click support on the top menu. Together we are light bearers. Together we prepare the way of the Lord. Blessed Nativity to you and yours, and thank you so much for your generosity.
Davis, and we're here tonight with Kevin Goodman. And we've been talking about Kevin's early years out, where he was sort of a professional hippie with the Order of Mans, and then upon realizing that he needed to have an income commensurate to being able to have a wife and children, he moved to become a nurse for a while and was a nurse in neurology, which I agree. I think that would be a really fascinating subject to be around. That's neat. And then, so from neurology, or from nursing and neurology, you went on to, you said you had a backup career, which I think is funny. How did you happen to have a backup career, Kevin? How did that work?
Well, long story short, just to close off the other part, today, even if you were taking care of Mother Teresa, you'd be wearing moon suits. And so it was kind of just ridiculous that you couldn't even wear basic protection. It was just very frustrating. But what had happened...
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't matter who it is now. Yeah.
I'm sorry, say again?
No, you're right. It doesn't matter who it is now. It's just recognized as a necessity, as an important thing. But yeah, that's kind of crazy to have to argue about it. But so it sort of ruined nursing for you, huh?
Think of like early COVID days, and how people had to suit up. But in any case, prior to that, we had, because it was critical care, obviously you'd have people that would repose. And one person had reposed, and we're sitting around, and one of the nurses said, if this was you, would your family be okay financially? And I said, oh, that's a good question. I said, I had recently married, and I went from no children to 3 instant children as soon as I said I do. So rounding off, I got 5, 10, and 15-year-old stepchildren. I said, that's a very good question. I said, I don't know. And she said, well, talk to my husband. Make sure, you're okay in that area. And I said, okay. So he came by, and most people get talked into kind of having the insurance kind that has cash in it, which is a total ripoff. And he showed me how I could have triple the coverage for half the cost. I said, oh, that makes sense. And so after he explained it, he said to me, could you do what I just did? And I didn't know why he was asking. So I said, no offense, but an idiot could do what you just did. All you did was read and point, explain stuff, and save me money. Why are you asking? And he said, well, I'm looking for trainees. I said, wonderful. I'm not quitting Hopkins. He says, you don't have to. He said, you could do it part-time. I said, look, I'm in school. I'm working full time. I got all kinds of, I'm a busy guy. And he says, well, do it around your schedule. Do it whatever part-time basis that you want. I said, okay, that makes sense. And he says, if you like it, great. If you don't, you're still a nurse. I said, well, that's fine. So anyway, I started, and it turned out that I liked it. And I did as well part-time financially as the hospital was paying me full-time. So I
Wow.
did have a backup career, and I had an option. So when everything hit the fan, if you will, I was able to leave. And it was interesting because as we were battling back and forth, myself and the head nurse and the whole team, we had to all meet together about this. And at one point they said, well, Kevin, you just don't like it because that guy's homosexual. I said, that doesn't have a thing to do with anything. He'll get the same exact professional treatment as anyone else. But let me ask you something. What if instead of Chris, it was Christine, and she was a lesbian? How would you all feel? And before they could control themselves, all their faces went, oh, yuck. And I said, you lying, hypocritical, bad words. Your faces and emotions just betrayed you. So don't pull that card. That doesn't work. It only has to do with it being a highly contagious, deadly disease. But it was a day that was fun to at least have the backup courage and say, well, take a leap. I'm out of here. Goodbye.
Absolutely. It's good to already know where you're going, especially with a wife and kids already. Now, tell me, how did you meet your wife? And how did all that unfold?
Well, we went to nursing school together, and that's how we met. And she'll tell a funny story how she wanted to meet this guy, Kevin from Boston, who had a red beard back when I had red hair and had hair. So we were both going to the parking lot and shortcut up this basically muddy hill so she'd get to the car before I got because she knew my car. And so we met and we chatted and went out to have a drink. And I had promised myself I was not going to date another woman with kids. Well, lo and behold, she had 3. And so as things progressed, we decided we'd marry. And she was a neonatal intensive care nurse for 19 years. And then she went back to school and got her master's. So then she was an educator across their huge campus, teaching basically A to Z, and then retired a few years ago.
Oh, that's neat. That's wonderful. So, so the 3 kids were about 5, 10, and 15 when you got married. The kids were. That's a lot of kids. That's kind of a handful, and they're all at different stages that all have each different kind of different challenges. How did that go when you were first kind of a young man, suddenly a father? Was it hard at first? Did it take a while to get into the flow of it?
Well, I was 33, so and I figured, even if you have biological children or stepchildren, either way, it's what you bring to it. And so I decided that, there might be some challenges, and there were, but they were slight. The usual things that teenagers give you anyway, and then, you can add on top of that, well, you're not my dad. Well, yeah, you're right. But, we live together and we're a family, and, your dad's gone. He left the family. So, here we are. But things worked out well. In fact, very recently, 3 years, it's been dragging forever. I don't understand why. But my youngest daughter came to me on Father's Day and she said, Papa, I want you to adopt me. I was like, wonderful. What a great Father's Day gift. Now, mind you, she was like 45 at the time, had her own family and married and all of that. But she had decided that. Well, anyway, the court, for whatever reason, just drug out. We had to send tax records. We had to send statements that we're in good health. In fact, I just had to send another one because the one we sent last year was now out of date. But we're just waiting for a court date and for them to say, bless you, you're adopted, get out of here, I mean, I have a friend who's, just a saint. Because I'm Santa, we had been doing a Santa event at Ronald McDonald House, and she walks in with a couple of her children. Now, she adopts girls from China, and mostly with cardiac issues, because China has that awful, well, they've rescinded it, so they say, one-child policy, where most parents want a boy. So if they have girls, sometimes they're literally left in the streets to die, or they go to these awful orphanages. So she's already has 4 biological children, but she had adopted 5 more. So this
Wow.
young girl comes in, and she's got a skinny little hand about half the width of a regular wrist. She's got 2 scraggly little fingers. She's on oxygen. She was going for a heart and lung transplant the next year, which she didn't make it through. And this woman's like, nothing to see here. Everything's normal. Everything's wonderful in my life. Just a wonderful woman. And after one of them had passed, she has adopted more. Now the children are like in their young 20s. And I had sent you a picture of myself in my Harley Santa sleigh. I put this sleigh on my motorcycle, and it's all decorated, and it says Merry Christmas in different paint, so it emphasizes that. And I have a stable on the back, and I just have a lot of fun riding around. But anyway, she had given me a prayer card that happened to have her address. So she would get visits from Santa in this sleigh, and all the children would come running out, and it was a blast. She since has moved to Florida, so I only see her every now and then if she happens to come up to my area.
Oh, wow. That is neat. That's really beautiful. So as you've been working as a Santa and doing Santa events, like you said at Ronald McDonald House, so you've met really a lot of families with kids who have health problems and things are struggling. What do you get to do like as Santa with them? What does that look like? What do you do?
Well, give them a lot of love and comfort and happiness. It's fun being Santa, and kids love it. A lot of times they'll just come and leap into your arms, and Mrs. Claus would go with me as well when she was able. So it'd be Santa and Mrs. Claus, the seldom seen Mrs. Claus, and so mostly it's fun and charity. Every now and then I'll have a few private events, but mostly fun and charity. And there's a street here in Baltimore, 34th Street, so kind of after the 34th movie and all of that. It's a short little street, but they decorated both sides and they decorate across the street. There's lights everywhere, and there's a sign-in book, so people come literally from all over the world. I've met people from everywhere. And so I would go there in my sleigh, and it'd be instant magnet. Children would, storm me. And one day there was a fellow with very professional equipment. So I asked him where he was from. He says, Russia TV. I said, oh, will I be able to see the broadcast here? He says, no, Russia TV. That's all I got out of him. And then another day, CNN was there. So I've been on CNN and local news and all of that. But anyway, that's the Santa part. And then, in the last couple of years, they've offered the Tele-Santa program, so we do that. But if you want to switch gears to the conversion part, or you're the interviewer,
yeah,
you can.
I definitely want to talk about that, because when we started, you started out Roman Catholic, and then, of course, a really pretty devout Roman Catholic, thinking about maybe someday being a priest. And then there you were with the Order of Mans, and not feeling like you were sort of advancing spiritually. You were a little stuck. And so what did you end up doing from there in terms of religion?
Well, I had my ears tickled, as it says in Timothy. Let me look at my chart. I think it's 4 verses 3 to 4. So I had my ears tickled indeed. And if I had been more grounded in faith, even though I went to a Catholic high school, there really wasn't much. They had a theology class, but I can't say other than that one statement about orthodoxy and throwing them out of the church as heretics. So I wasn't really grounded. I wish I had been. I wouldn't have necessarily had my ears tickled, but who knows? Anyway, so I went to a church that had similar mix of Eastern, Western, all combined, and cherry-picked Christianity as it blended in with them. So I went there for a number of years. I guess, I don't know, probably 10 or so. And then one day I asked the leader of the church, who was titled Swami because it had a Hindu bent. So I asked him and I said, Swami, what if Jesus never came? And they regarded him as one of the other avatars, a great teacher, Buddha, Krishna. And one of their sayings, it's actually from their scriptures, the Vedas, that truth is one, men call it by many names. And it sounds so nice and tolerant and inclusive. However, it's not true. It's only true on a very little surface. If you dig down an inch or two, you'll find that it's not so. What do I mean? Well, in Buddhism, there's no ultimate God. In Hinduism, there's about 3 million. In Islam, they deny many fundamental tenets of Christianity. Jesus didn't get crucified. It was someone else. And if he didn't get crucified, then certainly he didn't rise from the dead. Very fundamental. There's no such thing as a Trinity. God does not have a son. So again, it sounds so nice on the surface, all inclusive, and they can preach love and such, but again, you dig down just a fraction, it's not the same. So I asked him that question, what if Jesus never came? And his answer it covered things like Christian art and music and stuff like that, but it didn't have a word of salvation. So, slow learner here. A year goes by, and I ask him again. I said, I'm wondering a little bit. I said, I know that reincarnation is one of the tenets of our church and that we teach that, but I'm having some serious questions and doubts. I said, Jesus' mission was totally different than the other avatars. He wasn't just one of the guys. None of the other guys claimed to die for our sins. None of the other ones mentioned salvation. Certainly none of them came back from the dead. None of them resurrected. They're all still dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, the only reason that one would reincarnate is that one can progress along many lifetimes to ultimately reach nirvana, absolute bliss, heaven, whatever you want to term it, and to get rid of bad karma. Well, if you take the word sin and you equate it with karma, you can see that things change. I said, if Jesus came and died for our sins, or as you would say, karma, well, if all that was forgiven, there's no further need to reincarnate. Why would you need to reincarnate to progress forward and work off bad karma if it's been forgiven? Well, he vehemently disagreed with me. I said, no, I'm onto something here. And it wasn't me, it was inspiration from the Holy Spirit, because I didn't think of this stuff. I said, no, I'm onto something. I'm right. And no. And I said, well, look for a different church. And he said, well, it doesn't matter. They're all the same. I said, no, that's precisely where you're wrong. They're not all the same. And so I started looking. And one of my prime criterion was it had to have real Eucharist, not just a memorial, not just a symbol, and not just every now and then, a couple times a year. No, actual real Eucharist. And I didn't have any reason not to go back to my Catholic roots. I didn't, but I was looking. So I looked at Lutheranism and some other churches, and I ruled out some because they didn't meet the first criterion of real Eucharist. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want a church that was established by any particular man, be that Luther, be it Calvin, be it Zwingli, be it Wesley, because if I'm going from here to a neighbor down the street and I'm off by a couple degrees, no big deal, I'll get there. But if I'm going from here to the moon and I'm off by a couple degrees, I'm going to be off tens of thousands of miles. So, well, Luther might have rightly wrung out some of the excesses of Roman Catholicism, particularly indulgences. Okay, he was right on that, but he could be well off on a few other things, and ultimately you didn't have the real foundation of truth. So I was looking, and literally by the grace of God, I stumbled into my current Orthodox Church. And they had a little pamphlet, which I found very enlightening, called The Timeline of the Church. And it showed the church in AD 33 and just continuing right along. And all of a sudden in 1054, you had a split with Rome. And then after that came the Reformation, and split after split after split, where ultimately you got 35, 40 odd thousand different denominations, all claiming that they're preaching the truth and all from the same Bible. Well, that can't be the same. And so I decided, that doesn't make sense to have all that, but Orthodoxy just kept right on going. I said, this makes sense. So I like to read, so I have stacks and stacks of books, and so I started reading, and I started chatting with the priests, and I'd hang out after, liturgy and 10 coffee hour. Oh, and when I first went, as I mentioned earlier, I ride a motorcycle, so I wear protective gear. But I purposely went in my black leather jacket, bearded Harley rider, and sat in the back. And it was kind of like a little test. Is anybody going to go, oh, bearded Harley rider with the leather jacket? Who is this guy? But no, everybody was friendly. Everybody was nice. And I wish if I was in charge, they'd get rid of the Greek, the Russian, the Albanian, the Bulgarian, all the little ethnic labels, and just for crying out loud, call it the Eastern Orthodox Church. Because people will think you have to be Greek to go or belong, which I'm not. And, but that was no struggle. Nobody was off-putting because I wasn't Greek. Everybody was friendly and nice and warm, and we've made several great friends. And but I do wish they'd change that, because people that don't know that think they have to be that particular ethnicity.
Yeah, it's misleading, really.
My wife converted roughly 7 years later, and I didn't tell her she had to come if you want. She had actually come to my previous other Eastern Western church, and she didn't like it. And I guess maybe she thought I was going to drag her into something else weird. But, she came as she wished and developed, and now she's president of the Philoptos and very, very active in the church. So
that's wonderful. It's hard to be patient with that sometimes. It can be hard to be patient with that for some of us, to sort of say, well, no, when you're ready and you're interested, you can come along if you want. But did you find it difficult, like to sort of wait until she wanted to be there, or were you just calm about it and peaceful, no problem?
No, I just waited. I knew once I had decided, I knew it was right, and I knew it was for me. And so I got chrismated back in 2018. Does that sound right? When did I get chrismated? I should know this offhand. But anyway, it's been a while. I'm forgetting the date. I should know this, and I'd written it down so I didn't forget. Give me a second.
Let's see. You sent it to me, and now I'm going to look it up here.
It was around 2007. It was 2007 in March 18th, 2007. So anyway, So it's been a while. And
it's been a while, almost 20 years already. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Well, that's really a great story. And I like the way that you were thinking it through. And, my grandmother was like that. She was an atheist, and she was always like, well, Jesus was a great teacher. The sort of idea that, they're all good teachers. There were a lot of good teachers. And it's just like, what kind of a teacher claims to be the Son of God if he isn't? Like, what was that story? What does that mean in your head? But it simplifies, I guess, the message for everybody too much. But, we're going to be right back. We're going to take a short break, a little Ancient Faith announcement. And when we come back, I want to hear a lot about more your Tele-Santa experience and how that's been going and what it's like. So we'll be right back with Kevin Goodman.
Each year after Pascha, the Orthodox Church celebrates the holy myrrh bearers, who cared for Jesus' body after he was crucified. But myrrh bearing has a broader definition. It can serve as a metaphor for the practical, incarnate love to which Christ calls his followers. In The Art of Myrrh Bearing, author Elisa Bielatich Davis explores the lives of grace-filled, myrrh-bearing saints in Scripture and throughout the life of the Church, offering questions for reflection in each chapter. By following the lead of compassionate saints, such as Joseph of Arimathea and Olga of Alaska, we can learn to embrace a simple and profound way of life in ever-deepening communion with Christ and with others. You can find this book at store.ancientfaith.com. Again, that is store.ancientfaith.com.
Here tonight with Kevin Goodman, and we've been talking about, well, Kevin's whole life and about his conversion to Orthodoxy, but also about his work. He's a Santa Claus. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that Kevin looks a lot like Santa Claus, and he's been able to use that to leverage it for all sorts of wonderful ministry opportunities, both with, Ronald McDonald's House and various different charitable events, but then also with St. Nicholas Tele-Santa, which is an Orthodox organization reaching out to Orthodox kids around the world, the whole world over. So I want to tell you, St. Nicholas Tele-Santa, this is free, and you're all invited to do this, to sign up your kids or your grandkids or your Sunday school class, or to tell a friend, to tell people who have children that you think would like it. The website is stnicholas-tele-santa.com. And so, Kevin, you were saying earlier that so parents fill out a form about their kids, right? How does that get started? Is the form on the website, or do you send it to them?
Right. Let me make one other correction. My wife added that she converted 5 years later in 20. So anyway,
not 7. Okay.
Yeah, they can go to that site and they can download the form and fill it out. Like I was saying earlier, let's say Dimitri and Sophia, and they put things that they like, don't like, all of that. So when Santa calls, I'm actually chatting with the children. We do it by way of Zoom, and they see us because we're on Zoom and we're in uniform, but I know their names and I know things that they're interested in, and it totally surprises them. You know that? Santa said, yeah, Santa knows. And but again, it's to bring to them, the real gift, the incarnation, and tie in St. Nicholas. And, Santa was just a development later. And of course, it got all commercialized, but to ask them, do they say their prayers, and ask the boys, do they help out on the altar? Have they thought of doing that sort of thing?
That's wonderful. It's nice to be personalized. Yeah. So
very much.
When it's on Zoom, did this start out during COVID, or were you doing it before COVID?
I've only been doing it, I guess maybe it's 2 years. This might be my third year.
Okay. All right. But the program pre-existed COVID, right? I feel like I heard about it before that, but it must have really taken off, when Zoom got to be a big deal then. So
Santa Peter out of Atlanta heads it up.
Yes. And we had him on last year.
If you go to that website. Sorry?
That's right. Yeah, we had him on last year on the show to talk about it. And we were saying we're just going to have a different Santa every year so that we can tell people all about it. And it's just such a neat ministry. So I was looking around the website, and I saw that because you guys are affiliated with the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese, you've teamed up with the Department of Religious Education, and they have some lessons on their website that families could use sort of to introduce St. Nicholas and his life, and it talks maybe about the incarnation. Do you teach the lessons on the call, or is it the idea that the parents would go over those stories with the kids?
Well, it depends how much time we have. It's oftentimes not a very lengthy call. Again, we'll hit on the children, things that we know about them, their interests, their sports, be it soccer, of course, these days, and maybe they're good at art and that kind of thing. What maybe toys that they might want, because the parents have already told us that. But things they could work on, cleaning their room, being nice to each other. And again, then we talk about St. Nicholas and we talk about the incarnation, not, of course, saying the word incarnation. They're young children, but we tie all that together.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, when you talk to the kids, does anything wacky ever happen with the kids? Are they kind of anything? You ever get stuck with the kids, or are they pretty much just smiling and nodding and perfectly fine?
They're generally fine. They're very excited. It's
That's
amazing
neat.
that Santa would give them a personal call and know all these things about them. They're just fascinated.
Oh, that's beautiful. What a great program. That's wonderful. Now, about how old do you think kids should be that they would really enjoy it and benefit from it? Is it like an 8-year-old? What do you think?
Yeah, well, we'll take all comers, but
Sure.
generally children that are probably 5, 6, and maybe to 8, 10, that kind of age. Sometimes they get older and they fall away, if you will. But children that are in that nice, wonderful, wondering age are just perfect. We had the other day breakfast with Santa at our church, and you just see little children look at you in awe and wonderment, and it's so much fun.
Oh, that's lovely. That's really neat. But yeah, I can imagine they should be probably old enough to understand. So maybe a preschooler might not quite be ready for a Zoom call with Santa, but once it's maybe elementary school, seems like a good range for that. Yeah, that's wonderful.
I want to back up just a sec. When I was talking earlier about my previous experiences, I had read a book by Chuck Colson. I think it's called A Good Life, but he ministered to prisoners in India, and they were untouchable, which again is kind of an odd belief, but those people had no hope either in this life or the next, because if they got out of prison, they were still in that caste, they were still untouchables, where he would go and preach that you have hope and salvation in this life and of course in the next by way of Jesus and salvation. And if we had in America, you could kind of look at it as apartheid. If we had a caste system, imagine how people would react to that. But many of us Westerners would be attracted to Hinduism because of their other beliefs, but they kind of ignore that part, which, is a very, very odd thing. And also, people that tend to believe in reincarnation, they talk about the time when the man was born blind and his disciples asked him, was it his fault? Was it his parents' fault? And people that justify reincarnation will say, see, Jesus talked about reincarnation. He talked about, was it his fault? Was it his parents' fault? But they ignore the fact that Jesus said, neither one.
Right.
Neither one. So, and
he kind of
thief on the
debunked
cross,
it there.
he said, today, go into paradise. Not after many lifetimes. Today, you're going.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add that in as I had looked at my notes from when I was trying to find the date I got chrismated. I noticed that.
So was that common when you were in these groups where it was kind of Eastern and Western philosophy mixed together? There was an idea that you could have reincarnation and like Christian thought, that they fit together? They were thinking that made sense?
Well, yeah, because they would cherry pick things out of the Bible.
I guess.
Certainly never heard the verse that is appointed to man to die once and then the judgment. You never would have heard that verse.
Right.
And like I said, if my ears hadn't just been tickled by, the whole thought of one progressing and one developing the inner self and communing with God and being godlike, which was kind of back to the original sin. If you go, although we don't have original sin per se, but if you go back to the garden, what was a big temptation of Satan? You'll become godlike. Did God really say? Come on, he didn't say that. Listen to me, So it kind of goes back to that.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Gosh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I'm glad you went back and brought that up. But we do, as we're signing off, though, I want to make sure that everyone's getting the website for Tele-Santa. So you're going to be doing calls this year? You'll still be doing them?
Oh, yes. Yes, starting St. Nicholas Day. And it's tele, like television, T-E-L-E. So not like T-E-L-A, because it sounds like but it's tele,
right.
T-E-L-E. So
okay.
Just make sure people get that right.
St. Nicholas Tele, T-E-L-E, Santa. And then, so how many Santas do you guys have nowadays?
There's probably a dozen of us. We could certainly use more. So other parishes that, and you don't have to have a Santa beard. You can, go purchase theatrical, beards and dress up as Santa.
Right.
But I always figure if you got a white beard, shave it or be Santa. And I decided I'd be Santa. But we are looking for additional Santas so we can handle even more calls. So if you go to the site and you contact Santa Peter, he'll take it from there.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I have a friend who looks a lot like Santa, and he likes to play Santa in his parish. So I'm going to have to reach out to him and ask him if he's been considering it. But because that's a neat opportunity. I'm sure it's just, heartwarming to get to spend time with all these sweet kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. That's beautiful. Well, I'm so glad you came on the show tonight, Kevin. And, one thing you had mentioned, you do an email ministry in Baltimore. So Kevin sends out, some people have ministries where they'll send out a daily message, and Kevin sends out a message that's really lovely. And I'd been on the list for a long time and I kind of fell off. So I'm getting back on. But Kevin, how much time do you spend doing that? What kind of a commitment is that?
Well, part of it's easy because there's a priest, Father Luke, who had come to our church to do a retreat, and he's out of Massachusetts, and he sends daily readings. So, I just click and send that. But what I also do, what I call soul training, I just gather mostly from Facebook, but various quotes and stories from saints things I find inspirational, and I string them together. And then when I think I got enough, I just hit the button and send it off to everybody. But people find those very useful and informative. I also teach Sunday school, the middle school group. So.
Oh, that's great. That's a great group. I love that age group because they're still like, they're not quiet. High school gets quiet. The middle schoolers will still get going. It's more fun. But, well, that's wonderful. That's a lot of ministry work. That's a lot of contributing to the church and to the community. So thank you for all of your efforts and all of this. And I think you're just bringing all kinds of joy to people. And hopefully in the next month or so, you'll be able to spend a lot of time with some of our listeners' kids and introduce them to St. Nicholas of Myra. So thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You did a great job interviewing. Well done.
Thanks. And thank you to our audience. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really enjoyed having you here. And we'll be back next Sunday night with another Everyday Orthodox Christian. We'll see you then.